after it was reported that he'll become the face of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, despite concerns surrounding human rights abuses in the country. Is there a conflict here in terms of what Beckham has done in the past? Does it contradict what he's going to do in 2022?
Yes and no. That wouldn't be the primary element of hypocrisy that I would level at David Beckham for this, because this is a tournament that is steeped in corruption, in a sport that he has made his name and fortune and reputation from, and one he purports to love. So he shouldn't really want to be overly attached to a sporting regime that has put forward a tournament that's steeped in corruption, that also is going into a country that's conflicted by human rights issues, that marginalises certain members of society, and doesn't give them the same rights, that has the hypocrisy, as a country that has a variety of challenges. So what makes Beckham want to be involved in promoting and legitimising an event to such an extent? David says, because he's seen changes. I'm not sure how much time he spent in Qatar. What I would imagine the changes that he's seen is the size of the cheque they're prepared to write for him to be able to endorse and legitimise a set of circumstances that should not be legitimised, shouldn't be validated, shouldn't be polished up and made more consumable, shouldn't be washed through sport so that people forget the principles of the things that are being ignored in these countries, the human rights issues, the marginalisation of people in society, and the corruption of the event that was awarded to this country in the first place. So I think he's right to see himself getting a pile-on. It's not because he's seen changes, it's because he's seen 150 million quid coming his way. Now, it's easy to sit on the sidelines and suggest what you would do or what I would do or anyone should do, and most people would look at it and go, well, I'm getting off 150 million quid, maybe I would have the courage of my convictions and not do it. But there's an element of hypocrisy about it. And then you have the other side of the argument, which I wanted to bring in.
Hypocrisy, incidentally, because he was an ambassador for UNICEF.
Yeah, and because he's condoning something. He knows that David Beckham isn't being brought in to legitimise or to promote Qatar because he's a Mensa candidate, and because he's going to raise the intellectual level of people's debate around it. He's been brought in because he's going to polish it up, and because people like brand Beckham and they like what it purports to represent. I'm not in that camp. I think he was a very good footballer. I think his association with his wife has elevated him to a status of superstar, and he's monetised it. Well done, chapeau, fantastic. Believe in everybody doing well in life if their talents take them to that level. But I'm uncomfortable with people that have built themselves a reputation and a brand or an iconography that's supposed to symbolise certain things, and then it's been leveraged to symbolise something that it shouldn't be polishing up. And then you go further along the line and you've got his mate, his employee, Phil Neville at Inter Miami, coming out recently and talking about the abuse on social media. And I think he was pretty much targeting the situation surrounding Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as abuse. And I find the hypocrisy of that situation. Abuse is what David Beckham is legitimising by attaching himself to these events. Abuse is what happens on social media is a choice. You don't have to read it, you don't have to listen to it, you don't have to pay any attention to it. And you do have to remember that when you're in a football world and getting paid £7.5 million a year, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is doing for doing a very mediocre job, that sometimes there's a flip side to it. So I didn't want to conflate the two issues, but I want to point out about the real abuse in the world that we're living in, which David Beckham, by attaching his very polished public image to, gives validation to, whereas Phil Neville's crying about social media abuse, and the two abuses are poles apart in the real world.
Well, let's stick to the Beckham situation specifically. Yeah. His involvement in the Qatar World Cup, I mean, is he honestly legitimising the regime there by lending his services to promoting?
Why do you want David Beckham there?
The Qatar World Cup.
If you're Qatar, what do you want to achieve? You want to achieve an element of recognition. You want to achieve an element of validation
for the tournament,
and you want to achieve an element of polish
for the tournament.
But understandably so. But you can't just have those things in isolation, because behind all that is a regime that we shouldn't find acceptable. A tournament that shouldn't have been sanctioned in the manner that it was sanctioned, human rights issues that are real and live, and the only reason you want David Beckham is not for a spelling competition, is because you want to use that polished image that influences those people to see past what's really there, which is a corrupt tournament awarded in a corrupt way to a regime that has some things inside it that are totally unacceptable, and human rights issues that are off the scale of unacceptability.
But
now,
you
I
don't
realise that
expect
we're doing a
Beckham's
lot of moral
advisors,
stuff.
Simon, to take him out, do you? You don't expect Beckham's advisors to take him out on the grounds of, David, don't get involved in this because it's a regime that
Well, it depends what
is
you
frowned
represent.
upon,
You can't
usually
polish it one
worldwide.
way and not polish it another. You can't sit there and suggest that you're for this and you're for that and take all the benefits of a very polished PR reputation that is supposed to index itself to valuable causes, but wanted to get itself a knighthood, was apparently disappointed that it didn't get itself a peerage, and then suggest that it's right in exchange for a big bag of money, because this is what it's all about. But David Beckham is already in a fantastic position. And I think you should pick and choose. If you want to operate in a certain way, I think you should pick and choose the values that you really have. And if the value that you have is the chasing of a pound, fantastic. That's great. We all do it. We all believe in the fact that we should have economic benefits in our life. And if someone's offering you a lot of money, but there are some things in life, if you've achieved a position in life, where you have to maintain certain values. And David Beckham knows that he's not being leveraged here because he is the cleverest man on the planet. He's being leveraged here because his reputation influences people to look the other way. And that's what they want.
Well, a source close to Beckham tells us this lunchtime some of the laws and beliefs in the region differ to his own. But the Qataris have always said that everyone will be safe and welcome at the World Cup in 2022, and that Beckham believes that commitment is sincere.
Well, that's great, and that's fantastic for David Beckham, but we're not talking about over 4 weeks of a tournament. We're talking about the longevity of a regime, the attitude of a country, and its perpetuation of certain things that are flagrantly unacceptable to most civilised people.
So you think even though it's close to the tournament, now he should disassociate himself from it?
I don't think he should have associated himself. He is associating himself for one reason, because someone's offered him £150 million to do so. And that's a very compelling reason. But let's make sure we call it for what it is. Let's make sure that St. David is perceived in a certain way. When we look at certain things, we look at it through the correct prism. There's no envy. I don't do the envy side of things, but I've been successful and unsuccessful in equal measure. So I admire people being successful. But there's certain things in life you're supposed to stand for. And if you're a public domain figure that operates with such influence, maybe you should be judged upon that.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning 10 till 1 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.